Welcome to The Art and the Artist, sponsored by Dream Studios Incorporated and the committee to present Take Back the Day Festival 2021, New York. And your host, Miss Akia Shenise. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Welcome to the Art and the Artist. I'm your host, Akia Shenise, and I'm so happy to be here with the none other Don Ciccone, an artist of an artist. And I'm going to sit with him and talk with him about himself, his life, his artwork, and his future events to come. Don, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you? And
I
thank
am one.
you for the privilege to talk with you on this beautiful day.
Yes, I'm so excited. This is our first sit down and meeting talking. We met a little bit some weeks ago, but not formally. But I'm so happy to
Yes.
formally meet you via internet, Zoom.
Okay.
So, Don, we know that you have a wealth of knowledge of experience in the arts for decades, and you were born in Alto, Louisiana, and you travel the world. I want to know a little bit about your travels of the world, being in the military and with your art. So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, coming from Alto, all of the rest of the world was a great mystery to me. I reflect in my memoir, which will come out this month, incidentally, and I talk about remembering Pearl Harbor and my uncles having to go to fight in that World War II. And the term was where we were, they had gone across the water. The largest body of water that I knew was the river that runs through Alto. So that's how vast my world was that I grew up in. Now, being blessed with wonderful parents, four grandparents, a host of aunts and uncles, and in communities that were genuinely community, where people didn't just live near each other, but lived a common lifestyle for the purpose of good. And when I moved out of that area to Monroe, a whole 18 miles away, in the back of a pickup truck with two uncles, my two mallet ducks under my arm, and two cows and one hog. All of this is in the back of a pickup truck. And we come to a community in Monroe, and there are houses everywhere and no trees. That was my beginning. And being blessed of God, I was blessed to move through that environment and so greatly enriched my life to where, when the privilege came to travel to other parts of the world, I gladly accepted it. And my art career as a painter has built into that world that I finally was exposed to.
Wow. So, tell us a little bit how you got started as an artist.
Well, you see, the beauty of me being an artist is that I've always been an artist. And before I ever heard that word, art, that's what I wanted to do. Been a time when I did not want to be an artist. I cannot remember when I could not draw.
Wow. I can relate to that. I always wanted to be an artist. I always wanted to be a performer myself as an artist. So once you
Yes.
got that love, that's all you
Yeah.
want. So your whole life has been about art.
Yes. My orientation of my life has
Hmm.
centered around art, but that grew out of that community. And
Mm.
that community had that common lifestyle because of their belief in God.
Wow. Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. So speaking of the community and the belief in God, who was your inspiration for creating? So when you were creating art pieces, who or what was your inspiration?
Well, I have a very short answer for inspiration. There are two kinds, one for the good of humanity, the other for the destruction of humanity. All that are inspired to do good, it comes through the Spirit of God. And
Right.
and that reflected, thankfully, through my parents and my grandparents, and again, the community.
Wow. So growing up, how many siblings did you have?
I have one sister who's no longer with me, and she didn't show up until I was 12 years old. So she never was like my sister. She was like my child. And I loved her and she loved me, but she has since passed with breast cancer when she was quite young.
Was your younger sister?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
she's the only sibling. Yes.
only sibling. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So having family that's inspirational who support you, you have anybody else that's inspirational that supports you as well as right now as we are in during this pandemic time, because it's a lot going on, so I know you have some inspiration during this time. So is there anybody else?
People, as we all know, COVID cramped our style.
Mhm.
And so we shift gears, and immediate family has was essential, but that was made paramount during this time. So my present wife of going on 7 years now, my first wife is deceased after 51 years. And we had 5 children. So my children, a host of grandchildren, and I think it's about 7 great grand.
Oh, wow.
There's no boredom in my life with that. Yeah.
No boredom. We see, yes. So how do you make time to create with all the grandkids and the kids?
Well, we don't do what many people do, call each other every day. Um,
Mhm.
we and we even if we were in the same house, um, we did things together, and most of us fairly quiet in nature, so we don't
Mhm.
need talking all of the time. Now there are a few exceptions to this rule, and so we communicate by telephone, and I have uh, 3 children who are within a 30-mile distance from me, and we meet each other and still celebrate things, even though we've had to do it outside and space in between. And when it was cold, we still cook the same thing that each one of us cooked for Christmas or Thanksgiving, and we
Mhm.
We brought those to each other. So we found a new way of doing it.
Okay, good. I'm glad y'all staying together during the pandemic still. So I want to shift gears and I want to talk about your artwork.
Okay.
And I want to know, who have you created for, or who have you created and as term as painting? So let's start with, who have you created for?
Now you're being specific, and that's good. I like that. The I've worked to begin with as an artist, not as a
Mhm.
painter, but as a fashion designer in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All
worked
right.
for. I went to school in San Francisco, and the school called the one of the instructors knew somebody in New York, so they made that connection for me. Um, and but that person that was to give me the job when I got to New York was in Paris. So I had to find another job and
Wow.
to work for a furrier. And my training centered on female garments. And I had never, no notion of, what furs were like. But garments are garments. And so I passed the interview and did my own trial and worked in there in that industry in New York
Okay.
first. Mm-hmm.
So how long did you work as a furrier in New York, designing?
Not very long.
Mhm.
Um, the Furrier was a union outfit. And
Okay.
so after I passed the probation time, I went to the union to sign up. And when I walked in the office, the gentleman greeted me and offered me a seat. He knew why I was there. And being the New Yorker that he was, he didn't waste any time. He said, I know that you came here to be join the union. He said, but don't know colors um, belong to our union.
Mm. Oh,
And
wow.
he said they never have as designers, and they never will. He said
Oh,
now,
wow.
and the reason why we can't bring you in as a designer here is because from time to time you're going to have to take measurements of women, and we ain't going to have that. Now you can protest this. I'm in New York, coming from Louisiana. Jim
Mm.
Crow had met me there.
Wow. And did you know that it was like that in New York too? Did you expect it to be like that?
No, I was not expecting that kind of greeting from him, but I
Hmm.
was not um, so naive that I thought everybody in New York was going to be accepting of who I was. I knew
And what
better than that.
and what year was this?
We're talking 1961.
Wow. 1961. And Jim
Yes,
Crow was in New York City still too, as well. Wow.
yes, yes,
Okay. That's interesting. I think some stuff still haven't changed. But
yes.
so in New York was supposed to be the melting pot. And even back then, it still was no different than the South.
No.
Wow.
Now, the other side of that is the
Hmm.
company that hired me and other outfits also hired me who were not union shops. So it wasn't
Hmm.
all downhill. And my first wife and I lived there for about 6 months, and we moved out on Long Island to Huntington Station. And from Huntington Station, we decided, coming from sunny California, we had made it through the winter, but we didn't want to do another winter there. So we were led to go to Los Angeles. And
Okay.
yeah, and it was in Los Angeles. And you're going to read all this in my memoir. So I'm going to give you the short version of it. I went to work as a painter for an agency on La Cienega Boulevard in Hollywood, California. Out of that connection, he was served only the business, high-end galleries and movies, the companies, and TV. And Ross Hunter was working on a motion picture called The Art of Love, starring Dick Van Dyke, James Garner, Elke Sommers, and Tallulah Bankhead. And he needed an artist, the artwork of an artist, because the story is around Dick Van Dyke being an artist. And when they filmed in Paris, he told me the story himself, but he looked in Paris, he saw some good work, but he didn't find what he was looking for. Did the same thing in New York. He had looked prior to leaving Los Angeles and finally came back, and he stumbled into Don Cincone.
Oh, wow. So that's how you got your paintings in the movie.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
those persons that you ask about, I painted for Harris Saucher Incorporated, but persons like Vincent Price, Henry Mancini, Godfrey Cambridge, and Edwin G. Robinson, and a host of other folks, because of that location, purchased my pieces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Right. So you have created and you have several people have your artwork. I want to talk about the artwork behind you of former President Obama. So what is your inspiration for that art piece?
Um, Obama. Obama and Mrs. Obama and, and their children and Bo, the dog, all of that when he was running. Initially, it seemed that it would be like when Reverend Jesse Jackson was running and Congress Lady Shirley Chisholm was running, that we would be in the run, but that would be all it was. But after a short period of time, we know what happened. And it was in this time period that I wanted to paint Barack Obama, and nothing came. And so over a period of time, I got to where I wanted to be with him, and this painting showed up in my studio.
And I love the colors. It's the background. It's not just solid. It's grainy into it, and the eagle in the back. Um, that represents the United States. So I'm loving it. I love it. I love it. So you've been in the business as an artist, painter, fashion designer. You've done a lot of things for many, many years. I want to know, how have your art and how have your pieces and work have changed over time? Has it been the same, or has it you changed a little bit, or you just say what doesn't was not broke, don't fix it, or you wanted to create different things? tell me a little bit about that.
Central to your question is style. And style is how anyone does whatever they do. And if we do something long enough, no one else can do it as well as we can do that particular thing.
Right.
But to find that, and for that to happen as an identity for one's art form, yours, the performer, mine, creating form. So the creative form was always there in me, as the performing was always there in you, but I didn't know that. I thought this was somehow pulled out of much study of techniques and all of these other principles that you learn to make things recede and do all of the things you want them to do. But form came out of that child that I've been telling you about, where when I came back from Europe, traveling from Denmark down into Italy and practically every country but Rome and Portugal in between there that I could go to back in those days, and studied art, the visual arts of master after master, all of the various schools and the periods during that time. I could paint in at least 30 different styles. And so I did these things at will, but I did not have a defining style for myself. So when that defining style came forth and expressed itself out of who I really am, I never changed that style, but the way that style is presented from painting to painting varies. And that varies in terms of the culture that I'm immediately steeped in, and also now because we can do things like we are here on Zoom, the whole world. So there are changes, yes, but the way I do it does not change.
So speaking of style, who's your inspiration? What type of art or artist inspired you to create?
The artwork that I found in a very small library had two books about artists. And one of those was Charles White. And I love to draw. And that man does more with black and white paper and lines than anyone else in my thinking. Because
so tell us, for those who don't know who Charles White is, tell them about Charles White a little bit.
Charles White was a daring black artist. And it seemed to me that he came out of the 20s through the 30s and the 40s. And I was blessed to see an exhibit of his on La Cienega Boulevard when I was there in the mid 60s. And his work is so graphically powerful, displays the Black experience. It's the kind of an experience that you feel in the Negro spirituals, that you feel in jazz, in the blues. And we see this also in the dance. that comes out of Africa that came into this country, and that beautiful lady, her name doesn't come to me now, who had that dance school in Harlem. All of that kind of thing was in Charles White's work. And beside those, then I saw numbers of pieces of the great painters that the world recognized during the Renaissance and the high arts in northern Germany and other parts of the world, Japan. And eventually I saw African art, the mask, sculpture, and the tapestry, weaving, and that kind of thing. So that's some of the things that really made me feel like I could jump over the moon to just paint. Yeah.
Wow. Yes, Charles White, you can find his stuff in Hampton and the MoMA and New York, everywhere. So that's something that everybody needs to look up and find about Charles White. His artwork is dynamic. It's an expression of and painting of just like words and songs. So I agree. Okay, Charles White.
Yes.
Right. And so before we go, because we're about to leave, because I've had such a wonderful time talking with you. You've been an inspiration to me, just sitting here listening to you about your life and what you do. And I didn't know about the design and fashion design. I always wanted to do fashion design myself when I was younger.
You can still do it because you're still younger.
Yes, even if I was older, I believe I still could do it too. Never too young and never too old.
That's right.
So before we go, what pieces are you working on now?
I'm working on a watercolor, and
Okay.
it's all my work begins in the abstract. Then I listen to the abstract and find the form that it wants to be.
Okay. Okay. And I know you're working with Benjamin Smith of Dream Studios
Oh,
with Take Back the Day. So we definitely got to hear about you working with Take Back the Day. So what are you doing with the Take Back the Day initiative?
the when Daryl Triplett and Ben met through them getting together online, and I became a part of their conversation. And the first time listening to Ben talking about this project that he envisioned uh, relating to the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 event. And when we talked about the arts, all of the arts coming together to reflect on this moment in our history, that was very exciting. Then the question is many questions in my mind, but as I listened and had now the opportunity to do a little bit more talking with him, the big question in my mind all this time, and what do I have that speaks specifically to that? But when we continue to talk, what we're looking for in this is not the tragic moment, which will be with us forever, but it's the spirits rising out of that, and the hope, and the new aspirations, and generations that are now part of this, that they will continue to soar in the unity and purpose of a common humanity. So take back today is to say, let's keep winning the day, every day.
Right. Yes. Let's keep winning the day every day. I totally agree. Yes. All right. Don, I'm so happy to have sat down with you to talk with you, one of our elders in the art, with your knowledge and history. And I know we're going to talk some more on another occasion so I can pick your brain and get to learn more about the art and what happened and in your life, because you're interesting. You're so interesting. You got so much more to talk to me about. We don't have much time, but we're going to sit and talk some more, probably one-on-one, personally one day, and get to know you.
Yes.
I love talking to my elders. I love talking to especially artists that have been in the business for a long time, because that's where you find history, and then you find the future. When you know your past, you can know where you're going.
Yes.
So now, before we go, we want to know where we can find you.
You can find me at doncincone.com, my website, and Don Cincone Facebook, and Don Cincone Instagram.
All right.
And there'll be a lot of stuff on that as well. As a matter of fact, there's some on there already about the memoir. And the title of the memoir is Time Was Not My Burden.
What? Time is not my burden. All right, you heard it. Time is not my burden. Memoirs of Don Cicone. All right. And thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure. And we're looking forward to talking with you some more another time.
Okay. Bless you. Take care now.
And that was The Art and the Artist with Don Cicone. I'm your host, Akia Shenise, and stay tuned for more from The Art and the Artist.
Thank you for joining the podcast, The Art and the Artist, with your host, Akia Shenise. Thank you for joining us for Take Back the Day, the event of the year, September 21st, 2021 in New York City. Take Back the Day with us at takebacktheday.org. See you there.